If I don't have an answer, I'm just gonna look at Caroline.
Yeah, I'm not carrying you two on this.
Yeah. See, and here we go. They're already fighting.
This is marketing classes all over again.
I am so excited about this. Listen, I've said this a few times. We're doing the interviews, and there are a lot of special people. You three are certainly very special people. You know, you lived in this house a lot. The beautiful thing about what you did before we get into it was you also created your own friendships out of here, which was more important. So we were only one wee tiny part of your experience here, and that's very important. A lot of people wonder why in Cork we don't see the scholars all the time. And people start to understand the whole idea is we don't want to be close to you. We want you to go and make your own experience. And you guys really carried that forward. So Matt, Caroline, and Jim, I'm going to ask you one at a time just to introduce yourself, when you were here, and then we'll get into the other. Just what year you came and where you are now. Matt, do you want to go first?
I'll go first.
Go for it. Then we'll let the ladies go.
Matthew Graves. I was in Northern Ireland, Belfast. I guess that was 2013, 2012, 2013. It seems like it was yesterday, but it was a while ago. And after I left the Victory Scholarship, I got into and I was at be my alma mater for 6 years, and now I'm currently an assistant coach at Mount St. Mary's University in Emmitsburg, Maryland. So in terms of family, I have a beautiful fiance, Melissa. We're about to be married in May. And then obviously I have two brothers and mom and dad, and obviously grandmother's really close to me as well. So awesome. That's pretty much it.
Awesome, Matt. Awesome. Caroline?
Yep. Caroline Paterson. When I was a Victory Scholar, I went by Caroline Stewart. 2012, University of Ulster. Go Elks. I think we're, the Elks. Played for the Belfast Rockets when I was there. Came back home. Actually tore my Achilles playing for the Rockets. Came home, rehabbed. Actually went back to Ireland, played another year in Dublin. So I kind of got two very different experiences, two different, very, very different cities, but amazing time, both the 2 years that I was there. Finally came home and stayed home and joined a startup company selling identity theft protection. And I've been there for 5 years now. So now a national director of sales for the organization, and met and married my husband, who's from the North. Yes, we're here in Boston, and no kids yet, but the family I've got 3 siblings, parents, and Ryan has a sister that lives in and teaches in Scotland. So poor Ryan's parents don't have any kids at home anymore. But yeah, we're doing great here in Boston.
I think it's lucky. I'm glad you said that he was from Northern Ireland. That was a very important point, that you took an Irishman to Boston, so we can go there.
Yeah, we can dive into that a little bit.
Jim.
He's been right in these days. Probably more than I am.
Has he got more importantly, sorry, Jim, has he got an American accent yet?
No, I don't think so. People here don't think so, but when we go home, he gets slagged all the time that it's fading.
Fair enough. Jimmy?
It will always be Caroline Stewart in my phone, so I haven't been able to make that change yet. But I'm Jim Mower. I was Matt's roommate at Ulster in Georgetown, 2013. And now following getting my master's and being part of the Victory Scholarship, I moved to New York, lived in New York for 5 years. Now I live in Hoboken, New Jersey with my wife, Caitlin, who I did not meet in Ireland. I met her in a bar in New York. But happily married for a year now. I've had the same role in sales working for SAP after graduation from Ulster. I actually went from Ulster, which was, a classroom with tons of global folks. And then I went to a sales program that brought people from all around the country. So transitioned right into that and been in sales for 7 years at SAP.
Thanks, Jim. No, I think one of the things I just want to point out, the first time I don't know if you remember, guys, when we interviewed, because that's why I laughed. I thought Caroline was still on holiday. The first time we interviewed Caroline, she was on a boat in the ocean somewhere. So she was in a bikini. And after the interview, Dana looked at me and said, was she in a bikini? I think it looks like she was on a boat, Can you remember that, Caroline, when you did the interview, the first interview?
Yeah, well, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. My college coach knew that I was looking to have an overseas experience and, in some way, shape, or form to continue to play basketball. And she kind of threw it at me. It was last minute. And it's probably, looking back, very fitting to the relationship that we have had with the Maguires, and sport changes life. And just roll with the punches, and hope, glad you guys just didn't think I didn't care, because I did. And being in sales, you always take the call. It doesn't matter where you are, you take the call. So
yeah, absolutely. No, for us, it was a start of a phenomenal relationship. Listen, guys, I'm going to get into, talking about your experience here. The three areas we looked at: your friends, the friends that you made, the education, what the education was like, how you found it, how you found the transition, and then the community. And then the community, for me, obviously, there was a lot of things going on at that time when you were here, and I don't think you ever realized the impact that I was on a call, I was on a call 2 weeks ago. I was invited on a call. There's a lot of issues going on here, guys, with it's all over the world. It's globally, and issues around suicide and young people really struggling through this time. And do you remember Annette or Anita in the women's group in Glengormley? You probably can't remember. There was two older ladies there, and it was like the mayor was on the call and all this kind of stuff. And she realized she didn't really connect with the name, and she just shouted across the Zoom call in front, "That's Gareth. Where's Caroline?" And she started shouting your name. It was dead funny. So it was really, really cool, to be honest with you. And that was how many years ago? So let's talk about the friends, the team. Like you two guys had great relationships with all the guys. They loved you guys to bits. And Caroline, you made great friends at the Rockets, great friends in Dublin. Caroline, talk about your experience with the people, the way you were welcomed when you arrived here.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was very natural, being able to be the coach for the Elks and make my group of friends there. It was a little strange for me that I was coaching women older than me, a lot of them. So that was an interesting transition. And the fact that, we'd be training and, practice and games. And then after, they'd be like, well, are you going to come out with us? And I was like, is that what coaches do? That's, I wasn't really sure. And I've made lifelong friends on that team. And then my own teammates on the Rockets, again, lifelong friends. They were at my wedding. Every time we go back, obviously Ryan's parents are still in Ireland. And when we go back, we always make sure that there's a night that we all get to see each other. And the older we get, the more interesting the nights become. They go from, going out and having a couple drinks to, going to someone's house for dinner and hanging out and, just, staying in more. So I feel very lucky that I very much feel I have kind of two lives, you can say, in regards to friendships, one in Ireland and one here. So it was awesome, and really lifelong friends, and we keep up with each other. Social media really helps. WhatsApp helps a lot. I'm sure Matt and Jim can attest to this. Our work schedules are really our number one thing in our lives, besides our partners probably, and our families. So our work life has definitely probably taken a front seat. But it's always really nice to stay in touch with everybody, and everyone wants to stay in touch with you too, which is great.
And it's funny, like Deirdre, I'm shouting at Deirdre at the minute. Deirdre's staying awake. She's awake to 2 o'clock in the morning every night now because she's talking to the girls. Social media has changed everything. I mean, it's just, it's so immediate. Like Deirdre's able to go and get Anna on at this stage. It's just unbelievable. Matt, what about you in terms of, you know, what your experience here, you know, with your friends and the way you hung out?
Yeah, I mean, I think like me and Jim's relationship with our guys team was very similar. I coached the Premier League team, so I had a very similar experience to Caroline, where I was coaching a lot of guys that were older than me, which made for an interesting dynamic, and then also played with them on the National League team. So, and it is tough at times, you know, with work and everything over here, but you know, I do keep in touch and keep tabs on all the guys over there in Northern Ireland, and kind of go from there. But then in terms of friends, I think me, Jim, and Caroline's relationship has, you know, I would, without the Victory Scholarship, I wouldn't know those two, and I consider them really good friends. And I think that's another part of it, that the Victory Scholarships allows you to not only meet people over in Ireland, but also meet meet people that you really wouldn't have met other than, you know, being over in Ireland. It was funny, during quarantine we had a Zoom call like this, you know, just to check in with each other and all that. So that aspect, I think, is I'm really grateful for those two, to, you know, be able to keep in touch with and everything as well.
It's awesome. No, it's funny. I'm just, for some reason, something's happened today, guys, you know, with my old school buddies. Something happened, or something really cool happened, and then I just put a message, and then this whole flood of messages has now started of all these old friends. Like, we lived together, we played soccer every day, we were a good soccer team, so we were always together between the club and the school. And it's funny when you meet people, you know, you realize the meaningful people in your life very quickly, you know, and because when you meet them, it's like here. Like the comfort of meeting the girls, and it was like a normal Sunday evening, you're having your dinner and then everyone's sitting around for a chat, you know, just 10, 20 minutes ago. And that's where real friends are made in terms of this whole journey that we're all on. Jimmy, what about you? Really the same as Matt, but, you know, I think one of the things that really stuck in with us was, like, before you start, Jim, is like our girls and everybody around was devastated when you three left. I mean, devastated. It was quite a remarkable experience, because we could see we've always had great relationships with people, but I don't know, something happened with you three, the way you clicked with everybody. It's quite remarkable. Sorry, Jim.
Yeah, I think Matt and Caroline carried me in that year. But you know, I think what happened was, you know, you have friends that study abroad, like Caroline and Matt did. We didn't get to do study abroad, right? But we heard stories from our friends doing that, and this was just a totally different experience.
Let me work to hear you. Can you hear that, Caroline? Is it breaking up? No. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim, you're breaking up.
Broke
Can you hear me
up.
now? Can you hear me?
That's
Yeah, a
perfect.
little better. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, you know, what was different about?
Are you putting your arm on something, or?
No.
You just seem muffled.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's perfect where you are now.
Okay. I was just talking about how, and tell me if you can't hear me throughout this.
Go back a little bit. You're leaning in. That's down.
Try that.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting ready for one of Garrett's TikTok videos. No, I was just saying that, you know, similar to what Matt and Caroline, nothing?
No, it's weird. Nobody can hear you, but it's just step back a bit. It's just bizarre.
Let me get my AirPods.
Yeah, do that. Try that. Yeah. I think one of the clear things, Caroline, you know, I think, you know, it's why, and like we would get criticized. One of the funny things, we would get criticized because we're not involved with the scholars enough in the South, and they don't understand. We're actually not with you guys a lot when you're here. You're away doing your thing. And that's the nature of the beauty of the program, that you're meant to go and experience your own stuff. You know, you're not meant to
Yeah.
live in those pockets.
And I think another piece of that where Matt and Jim and I probably maybe brought some value, maybe not. We were the link to other athletes, other basketball teams to each other. So, I would say, oh, well, I'm with the, Elks team tonight, or today or whatever, we were connecting. I mean, Northern Ireland's a small place, and basketball, there was only so many basketball teams around our area, but they didn't seem to really hang out together anyway. So we were the link to almost connecting and creating more friendships in that realm as well, which I thought was really interesting and fun.
And it's still the same, Caroline, but I think it's ironically, it's all over the country. I think there's parts of the country, it's just fragmented, and it's quite sad. It's one of the sadder pieces of our game. It's such a good thing. People struggle to be around each other, which is really weird, but it is what it is. Let's try it, Jim. Can you hear me now? Can you hear us now?
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Happy days.
Awesome. So tell us why you liked us, or liked Matt and Caroline.
Why I liked you. I would say just, the welcoming from everyone, whether it was the McGuires, my teammates, or the girls that I coached and their families. The thing that we were really showed how welcoming everyone was, whenever there was a Sunday, we had multiple invites to go eat. And we, enjoyed not just eating with everyone, but really getting to know everyone's family and embedding ourselves within the culture. So that was really the first thing that I think about when I think back of Ireland, and really just the folks on this phone, you, Gareth, Matt, Caroline, we stay in touch, but sometimes we don't. And I really, don't get to talk as much as we want, but I really measure a friendship by when you get back on the phone, how you click and it's right back to how it was. So that's really the two big pieces that I would think about when I, think about you and the folks that we met in Ireland.
That's a very strong point, Jim. And I don't know if Matt and Caroline realize this. Freakish. I'm going to a meeting in London. I can't remember why I'm in London. And I'm standing get off the plane, go down to the train, and I'm standing waiting on the train. And I look to my right, and Jim's standing there in London. He had just got off a plane, and he looked like shit now, to be honest with you, because he was doing it all.
And I was going to a meeting.
He was going to a meeting.
It was a red eye.
Big ever, like a big hug. It was like, oh my God, that's just nuts. Just the strange sort of environment.
It's funny because that's what I needed. I was like I had a red eye. I was reading my notes for a presentation, and saw Gareth, had a couple laughs, calmed me down. So that was a great, 1 in a million shot that would happen. But
it's really cool. It's really cool. The education, how did you find the education transition, the change from the States to here? How did you find that transition? Anyone, you go first now. You go. Caroline sat there quietly, so you go first.
So the education for me, I think was twofold. I think one, obviously the master's program was really important for me, and it was good. Kind of the experience for that I took was just the different. Being over in Ireland, they think a little bit differently than we do in America, and so getting that perspective I did, obviously we all did kind of the business studies master, and in terms of the business world, they thought, or their thinking obviously was a little bit different than ours in America, and I think that experience helped me whenever I'm doing stuff now. And then I think the coaching for me was even more important for me, just the coaching in terms of having the under 13 and under 14 girls team, and then the Premier League team. It kind of catapulted me into knowing what I wanted to do after this experience, and so I think in terms of that education, quote unquote, for me was really important, kind of knowing after the experience what I wanted to do when I got back to the States.
That's a real testament, you know, the fact that you are now coaching at a high level and everything, which is considering you started at under 13 girls. That's quite incredible.
Yeah, really.
Caroline.
Yeah, I would say with just to add on to what Matt mentioned with the education piece of it, and I really enjoyed being in the classroom with just different people than you would if you went and got your master's in Boston. I mean, again, Boston's a pretty international city when it comes to education, but learning the stories of the people that were sitting next to you and why they were getting their masters and what was important to them would be very different than our experience and why we were there. So it definitely put a perspective on, especially with the Irish folks that were in class with us, of, you know, they were significantly older than us at that time. And, you know, we were like, well, why now? Why are you looking to get your master's now? And they were very candid with the reasoning of, you know, at the time there wasn't a lot of work. So they were making the decision to, instead of, you know, searching for a job, to get their master's. So that was a really cool, you know, just insight. And we learned from them in the classroom of, you know, how their way of thinking, like Matt said, is just different than ours. We're very go, get it done, do it right, you know, very, very fast. And that was very much a step back into very like processes. And that was a really interesting learning experience, especially for me coming from a communications background. I definitely had my eyes open in regards to the business studies side of things.
Awesome. Very interesting. Jim?
Yeah, I think what really stuck out with the classroom kind of mirrors what I do now, right? And that I work with global companies, and the classroom was really folks from every single continent in the world, right? And it was my first time out of the States, and it was an education that wasn't US centric, right? Which is how everyone else around the world was bringing their thoughts. And, you know, we're open to ideas and challenging everyone, and everything was mostly in a group setting, which was really what I loved about that classroom and the diverse views.
And do you find that's help? So what you're saying, you find that helpful in your job today, Jim? You think that's critical for what you do?
Yeah, I think culture can drive how business is done, and it's done differently around the world. And seeing that in the classroom was key and helpful. As you know, the next year, like I said, I went to a sales training program, and you know, there were 14 Americans out of 100 people, right? So it wasn't about doing it the American way. It was about understanding multiple cultures and working together. So I got a taste of that in Ireland, and I think it was really key and jump-started my career working with folks from outside the U.S.
I think one of my first experiences when I went to Dubai, stupidly, I was wearing new shoes, and it was a summer trip. It was a summer week. And I bought new shoes like an idiot and wore them because I had a new suit and I wanted to look really sharp over there at the meetings. So the first morning I had the new shoes on, I was dying with the heat. My feet were swollen and I couldn't. So I stupidly took my shoes off in that afternoon in the meeting, and thinking, when I took them off underneath and I had my feet on top of my shoes, thinking, you know, no, it's not. There were clean socks. There was no way there was going to be smell or anything. But I was asked to put my shoes back on because they felt, you know, that it was a bit disrespectful. And I was like, oh my God, I would apologize about 40 times, but you're 100% right. That cultural experience, even shaking hands, you know, we would, when I've been in
Wait, can you take your shoes off in Ireland?
What's that? I do it all. That's what I. Well,
can you take your shoes?
Well, absolutely. But what I said.
Don't take your shoes off in meetings here, Garrett. Don't come to New York and take your shoes off.
Here, well, the clever move for me was in Ireland. Anybody, when you come to our house, what do? The first thing you do, you take your shoes off the door. So I felt I was home when I was there. So that was my mindset of the whole thing. Kind of crazy.
Well, with that said, I know the three of us can definitely attest to our living situation at the University of Ulster on campus. I mean, I lived with 2 French guys and 2 girls from China, and I was the American girl, and you know, I could barely fit in in the showers. So cool. But for me, being a female living on a floor with two French guys, that was an experience, to tell you that.
Culture.
And I know Jim and Matt had their own experience in their dorms.
That's definitely culture. No, in terms of the community, get to the community before we go back to your personal experiences again. You realize you three had a massive impact on the community. Community was huge. It was huge. You get the timing for you being here was quite significant. I mean, it was really, really significant, and you played a big part in sort of normalizing a lot of kids' lives at that stage. The girls group, Caroline, do you remember the night that you walked into the girls group?
Yeah.
Don't be saying what you said after it. We'll not say that on the Zoom, but
I can't remember what I
look at their
said.
face when they saw you. Well, you said, and you said that these girls just need someone to take care of them.
Yeah.
And there was a context of, it was very clear these girls needed some help.
Yeah.
That's what it was, in a number of ways. Can you remember the affection and the love that you got from that group? Can you remember the impact?
I still follow a lot of them on Facebook.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, one of the things we'd love to do, Caroline, and Taylor and I talked about it earlier, we'd love to get you on with some of those girls and some of the leaders some night. I think it'd be, if we could do that, in the next 3-4 weeks, I think it would be awesome. They all remember you. They all, played a big part. And you played a big part in them, because if you remember, a lot of those kids were going through a lot of really difficult times at that time. It was a really unstable time in all their minds. Matt, Jim, what are your experiences of the community piece that we did? There were so many groups that you guys worked in, all three of you. What are your experiences with the community, not just the coaching, the bits outside it, like the e-hoops?
I mean, I would say my experience with that was it was really great to see the change that was made just within however long. I think it was 10 weeks that we had a group. It was amazing, to see them kind of come in and just be running around, just kind of being a little wild or whatnot, to now they're interviewing for jobs, and that transformation, I think, was kind of the thing that left a imprint on my mind. Was like, wow, just being there, playing basketball, talking to them and things like that, really changed, their lives, which is awesome.
I think it's testament, and it sounds awful to be the extreme here, but none of those groups and none of those young people ended up inside. Right, that's the first thing. So that sounds awfully extreme to say that, but there were many of them many of them are on the way to that position. What's more important, several of them are living outside the country. Now, the significance of that, if we hadn't handled stuff then, they wouldn't have been allowed to leave the country when they did go to leave the country. So that in itself, it's and during that time, during that flag protest and the different things that were going on, many young men, if we can remember, did lose, that they ended up, in serious problems and all of that kind of stuff. But the impact you guys were having was quite remarkable. What's your memories of it, Jim, in terms of some of the stuff that went on?
I think the big thing when we were getting into that program was really just trying to get to know the guys, get them to open up. And, opening up is vulnerable, right? So, a lot of the success, I will, go back to you, Gareth, building trust in the community. And then Matt and I were able to get in there and play sports. And we were sure we would start off vulnerable by playing soccer and getting our butts kicked. But the real valuable thing that I saw was, like, in sports, there can sometimes be a hierarchy, right? Because who's good at this and good at that. No one played basketball. So it kind of flattened the surface. Everyone was there just to have fun. We really got to know the guys. And the more they opened up, the more I think that they were able to, grow. And I put a lot of that in sports. I put a lot of that in the trust that you build, and then a lot of that in kids that really wanted to help themselves out.
I think the most powerful thing about this last few minutes, guys, is it's the way you talk about it. It's as though you just left. That's the scary thing. You know, it's as though you just left. Was it 8 years now? You know, you were here. It's as though you just left, and you talk about it from, and that's why, like I just want to touch on it. America is in a different, has been in a difficult place. You lived here in one of our more difficult years. It was quite ironic at that time. Um, and I believe that experience of a victory scholar when you're here is testament to when you're back in the States and dealing with adverse situations. Do you feel that because of your experience here has helped? The reason why I want to ask that before you ask that before I ask your question, I believe my early days as a young boy growing up in Belfast had massive issues. I had a lot of issues with it growing up. I mean, anxiety, you know, just a traumatic experience at different stages. And it's funny, I spoke to a couple of the scholars this week, and unwarranted or what's the word? Not unwarranted. I didn't say it. They said it to me. The experience this last year has been incredibly, and they're finding themselves waking up with anxiety and stress and issues. And I'm working with a couple of agencies and groups in America trying to help them get a better understanding. Do you, even though it wasn't as big when you were here, do you feel your experience, your cultural experience here has helped you? What's gone on this year in the States in some way? Maybe not, but has there been some sort of, what about you, Caroline? Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you feel it's giving you a bit of understanding?
Yeah, that's the word. For me, it's if I didn't do the Victory Scholar program and I didn't leave New England really to live and like really immerse myself in a completely different environment and a completely different culture, probably my point of view or my outlook on the world and how to handle, these big issues that we're seeing in the States right now, I would probably think completely differently. And I look at, some of the older generations in our country that maybe have never left or have never experienced anything outside of their bubbles. I think there is some, I mean, I'm married to, someone from another country, so I get to have that reminder every day of a different outlook of the experiences that he might have experienced and what I've been able to learn from the 2 years I lived over there. We're just better for it, and I think it's the understanding and knowing that you have to listen to all of it and have an open mind, and at the end of the day, like, understand that you're a good person and you want the best for everybody. And I think if you don't leave your little bubble, sometimes it's detrimental. So I think having the opportunity to live and experience a completely different culture, it's almost like we were given this amazing opportunity to kind of take it another level. Never mind just like leave your own state or leave your own region. We got to leave the whole country. So I think that has definitely helped in trying to stay positive and trying to see, the progress out of quite a mess the past 18 months have been. But that's, I think that the word understanding, being able to live outside of the bubble that we're used to, or that how we grew up, has only helped.
And you personally, Caroline, not getting into all of it, would have seen the very clear differences between our communities here in Northern Ireland.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Very much so, yes.
So there was obviously the basketball fraternities, and then there was the real world fraternities, and you would have seen that. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I think Caroline hit it on the head, like in terms of perspective, like that. And Jim and Caroline kind of touched on it. This was my first experience outside the country as well. And so to see, different perspective on things gives you a more holistic picture of not only, politics and all that stuff, but also, kind of the way other people think, which in America, like Jim said, you're mostly worried about America, whereas, when you have this type of experience, you do get a more holistic view on things. And obviously the past 18 months has helped me with certain things. And I kind of try to tell that experience to guys on my basketball team that haven't had that time, or that haven't had that chance to experience different things, and so I think this program has really helped myself kind of get that approach, and that view, whereas I wouldn't have had that experience other than that.
Jim, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, when things are tough and I am trying to, think of a pick me up, I do sometimes think of Ireland, because it was such a different way of life compared to like Philadelphia, where I grew up, in New York. Just the pace in itself was different than what I'm used to, and just the people were just so warm, and it was natural to them, that I think back to that, and it wasn't always nice out, it wasn't always warm, and everyone was happy, welcoming, and great to be around, and I need to think about that and bottle that up sometimes when I always, people ask me, how's Ireland? And one of the things I always think about was like, the happiest people I've ever seen in my life were a sunny day, 75 degrees in Ireland. Everyone is outside. The energy is unbelievable. There's a couple men, shirtless, drinking cider. And like, that is some of the happiest people that I've ever seen. And it's not really a surprise when you look at like where some of the most generous countries, and Ireland's always right up there when there's a disaster or something that's going on around the world. So we experienced that, and that's definitely something I think back at when I think about my time in Ireland.
And that's a lovely thing to say, in terms of even with with everything that's going on. So let's have 3 questions left, guys, and you probably just answered one of them, Jim. So my thought is, one of the most memorable experiences here is men outside with no tops on drinking cider. Hopefully that's not a very any stories stand out for the three of you? Any stories that stand out that your experience here just sums it up? It's a hard question just to throw at you, but you know what I mean. Or is it too far back? Can you remember something? Or maybe you can't. The ones that you're happy to go on Zoom, obviously, maybe not all of them, but anything stand out?
The story that really has had an impact on me was, and she'll probably hear about it, is Grace. I haven't talked to Grace. I haven't seen Grace since the last game, the championship game of the under 13, but like her, like when the first game we coached, like she didn't, like she was tired and she just went and sat on the bench during the game, and I looked at Deirdre. I was like, Deirdre, like, what is she doing? Like we're going back and forth. We're playing 4 and 5. I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? And I was like, what are you doing, Grace? Like, I'm tired. And then in the championship game, she gets 2 steals and gets a layup, and Aaron obviously plays good defense, gets a steal, makes a layup. And that's a story that has kind of kept me going in terms of coaching, is because like that was just obviously a small sample size, but the impact coaching can have on young men and young women. I think that's one story that I'm just sitting here like, in literally probably about 4 or 5 months, she went from being tired on the bench to being in an overtime game, getting a game winning layup.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, that's one story that I'll tell till I'm old.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's an awesome story. Caroline, Jim, anything that stands out? Now, if nothing stands out, there's no problem. But any problem is there's so many crazy things that would have happened when you were here.
God, I know there's plenty of stories we could be on the Zoom all night. I think for me, when I found out that I was actually going, that it was actually happening, that I was actually going to leave, the Boston area, and my passport came in, my ticket was booked, like that it was actually going forward, my stomach dropped and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like this, it was a huge, question mark of, I have no idea, like there was a lot of unknowns for probably all three of us. And when we got there and we all met each other, and we all seemed to have the same mindset of just go with the flow. Like, it's gonna make the most of it. We're gonna be fine. It's gonna be great. And then once we settled in and really had, it was a very easy transition, but that moment of you're going, truly, I mean, truly changed. And then once we got there, truly changed, I know, my life forever. So to say that, is there a couple stories that you could pinpoint? I mean, every day we probably could have put a story together of something crazy happening, or, the friendships that we've made, and the e-hoops and the girls side of things. You can't put a price on it, and you can't put one story to it. I think it was and with the fact that Sport Changes Life gives you those three pillars of, you have your education, you have your basketball, whether you're coaching or playing, and you have the community piece of it, is just so special, that it's such a big event in our life. Looking back now, it truly, I mean, not to be corny, but it was life-changing, I know, for me at least.
Well, I think, if I'm right, Caroline, you're the first girl on the program.
Yeah.
And I think, so for us, like, the excitement in our house for you coming is ridiculous, as you can imagine. So for us, it was a huge step as well. And it was one of the things where we were actually trying to reach out, partner with people, in terms of saying, let's bring a lady over. And, there was so many. I think, Jim, if we'd have known you, I would have just loved, you all know what Jim's face was like when you said something to you, and he thought either you were being ridiculous or the other person was being ridiculous. And one of the complaints that Caroline was, how many bags could she take? Because she needed a bag for shoes. And now that we all
have you seen my feet? They're massive.
Yeah. I just wish Jim would have been in the room when that was said. I mean, knew him a few months, because his face would have said everything when that was said, but it was worth. Jim, what about you? Have you anything sits out, or anything, nothing that jumps out?
Yeah, I mean, I've told a couple stories that stuck out, but like where I was in my point in my life, it was, a lot of my friends and our friends were from college, were starting careers, right? And they were doing the 9 to 5, and they were grinding, and you were getting feedback that it was, not the most fun experience. And I just always felt like it never was a job for us, right? We loved being at the gym, coaching. We loved working with kids. Never felt like a job. It felt like a lot of fun. As much as we could be at the gym and working with folks was really how I felt. And, you certainly, Gareth, are saying how, we had an impact, but it certainly felt like, the other side was just, as generous, if not more generous to us when we were in Ireland.
That's lovely. And I think about it is, and that is what we're realizing, with the program that it's had, for us, it's like I said at dinner after interview yesterday, I was just blown away by it. And like this one, it's just lovely. It's just very comfortable, and it's you're 8 years away, guys. And it doesn't feel like, it feels literally like we spoke last week. It's kind of bizarre. And I know you feel the same. Personally, very simple. It's a big question, but the last two questions are very similar, really. How do you want to impact the world? You've impacted here, and it's kind of, you know, not being corny, you know, you did here, you did. There's no doubt you impacted our lives, you impacted the people that you met. Is that the starting point?
This is your like Oprah question.
It is. So don't be crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to go first, Jim?
How do I want to impact?
This is not a Jim Moore. This is not a Jim question. This is a hard one for him.
I think it's not. I don't think it's a hard one at all. You know, I hope to be, my whole life, I've always wanted to be a good friend, a good son, a good brother. You know, I think at this point in our lives, top of mind is always now to be a good husband and hopefully a good father in the future. So those are they're simple, but those are the things I think about. And then the people, as you get older, sometimes there's less and less people you talk to, but those are the people you want to talk to and you want to be a good friend to. So that's the impact I'd like to have.
That's awesome.
Today.
That's awesome. That in essence, that's a victory scholar. To me, if it's the type of person, a real role model for people, you know. And anyway, Caroline, do you want to have a go?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a clothing line or company in the States that their literal name is Be a Good Person, and they sell these t-shirts that just say be a good person in like really cool colors and everything. And that is, it's kind of the bottom line for me at least. And I think in where the three of us are at in our lives, as Jim mentioned, like, you know, be a good daughter, be a good wife, you know, be a good friend, like just be there. Even when a lot of times our work really dominates the majority of our life at this time, you know, in our early 30s, you know, we're trying to, you know, climb the ladder and do really well and be able to provide, you know, very much the American way. And that is very much our focus. And I think, and I don't want to speak for Matt and Jim, but I have a feeling that's probably where they're at too. But I think, you know, I've had talks with Ryan about, you know, how can, you know, once we do kind of settle in and feel that we're in a position where we can give back and we can give more time to the community, or even, you know, to the community in Ireland, of, you know, keeping that connection there, we would love to do that. And I think that's something that down the line is where we want to give some of our energy. And I think right now in the time of life that we're in, you know, all just recently got married or are getting married. There's a lot going on in our time. So I think keeping that positivity and being a good person and being there for the people that matter the most right now is my short-term goal. And then a long-term goal to start really helping the community in any way that we possibly can, if and when we can.
Yeah, no, it's and the ironic thing about it is that your stage, you're doing what you need to be doing. You know, you have to concentrate on those things, you know, and it is because it's a tough world now. I mean, it's going to be tougher for a while, you know. Now, in saying that, cybersecurity, you're going to be at a good place. Everyone must love you, Caroline, at the minute, because everybody is right now. Matt, where are you at the minute? Where are you thinking?
Yeah, it's hard going last because the other two
all the works.
Yeah, they say all the good stuff. But yeah, I mean, yeah, just be the best version of myself that I can be, you know. And that's I know that's kind of broad or whatnot, but you know, I think Jim's right. Be the best son, you know, best coach I can be. Obviously, is my job, and then whenever I do get married, best husband, and you know, hopefully we have kids, best dad to my sons, daughters, what have you. I think that's where my impact on this world will be, whether it be you know, all those, or might be one of them, you know, but I just be the best at whatever I want to do, and then kind of go from there. So
I think one of the clear things is, guys, you know, that you have three wonderful families. So it not being patronizing, they all produce wonderful people, you know, and that was very clear from the very start, from the very beginning. Guys, this has been a pleasure. You have been wonderful people to work with, you know, when you were here. Our family, our organization is built by people like you. So we are so grateful that you chose the program. I remember when we spoke to your coach, Jim, about you, and we remember, because as you know, we're very close to your coach. You know, when I say close, he's like, we have one of these relationships, we don't see each other for months, and then you end up getting on a phone and you talk for ages. He's just the most wonderful guy. And his attitude towards you, that you're going to get the most honest and straight individual who will do everything right for you to make sure it works. And that, you could say the same for all three of you. I mean, you've been outstanding. So this has been a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed it. Just a bit of fun. I've enjoyed it. And I really appreciate you giving me a wee bit of time today, because it does mean an awful lot. And thank you very much. Okay. I'm just going to shut it down, guys, and then we'll